At 8:44, we will call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Newbill, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Here, can we call the roll, please?
Sure. Town of Ashland, Ms. Barnhart. Charles City County, Mr. Patterson. Chesterfield County, Mr. Engel.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Lyle. Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Present.
Henrico County, Reverend Cooper.
Present.
New Kent County, Chair Stewart.
Yes.
Powhatan County, Mr. McClung. And City of Richmond, Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Okay, so we don't have a physical quorum, so we cannot vote on any items. Just
All right, well, we will skip down to C, I think. Ensure compliance. Yes, Ms. Shepherd, would you like to give us an update on the financial management system?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Effective January 1st, we are live in the new system. So as a reminder, the system is called JAMIS, and I will once again shout out our incredible cross-functional team that supported the implementation. We received really nice compliments from the vendor around how our staff took ownership of learning the system every step of the way, taking the time to create our own user documentation for every critical process. So when the vendor isn't here holding our hand, we'll be comfortable using the system ourselves. We've met every critical deadline and milestone to date. As of January 1st, staff are entering their timesheets in the new system, and we're processing that labor and payroll as well. As far as UPWP data migration, so that's our largest transportation award. We have moved all of those costs, historical costs, into the system. And we have already prepared and processed an invoice on that large transportation grant. AP accounts payable, is being processed in the new system as well. And we're already utilizing the recruiting functionality. So we actually have, we're backfilling an open position right now, and we're using the system to accept candidate applications. We are not yet done. So we still need to bring over historical cost data for grants other than our large transportation grants. We're also working to implement NACHA functionality, which is a more efficient way of processing our electronic payments by uploading a file rather than entering things manually. We have another 4 to 6 weeks of heads down, really digging into reporting and forecasting functionality once all of that historical cost data is in, and then training the rest of the staff who are all doing really well on what we've trained them on so far, which is primarily timekeeping. We'll do some expense training actually later today. In terms of those larger, more strategic questions and how the strategy for solutions is weaved into the system, JAMIS will provide faster visibility into what's at risk. So we'll be able to quickly quantify exposure if federal or other funds are paused or terminated. So again, timekeeping is embedded in our system, and we can run a report today on costs, including our largest expense, which is labor, through yesterday. Meaning in real time, our program managers can quickly pivot and redeploy staff where it makes the most sense. In our old system, it took about a month to close the accounting records for the previous month and gather data for reporting and analysis to understand expenses and remaining balances for the period. So that month delay meant that the data we were using to make a plan was already missing another month's worth of activity and the impact of those costs on the plan. JAMIS will allow us to activate spending controls through our accounts payable workflows and approvals so that we can very clearly identify invoices or contracts to vulnerable funding and reduce the risk of incurring costs that later may become not reimbursable. We can code revenue and expenses to our regional vision and key imperatives on the board back behind you. So for every dollar flowing through the agency, we'll be able to identify and report how it ties to our strategy and where we might have opportunities to adjust the mix of those strategic themes. and loop in our incredible grant specialist, Emily Williams, to research grant opportunities that further deliver on the board's intentions. Awesome. Any questions on the financial management system? Okay, should I turn it over to
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, previously meaning last year, the year before last, and all of the years previous to that, we've kind of been looking at what our reserves would look like, why we would need them. And years ago, there was discussion about it, and it kind of got figured out. And then some things moved. Different folks came on the commission. But last year, at the start of 2025, we were very aware when some of these grants were coming in, things started stopping, as to, what we might need to do, either to keep this organization operational, or what we might need to do as it relates to accepting grants and accepting work, committing ourselves to work. We actually talked with Mr. Gregory, Ms. Schickel, Mr. Spoonhour was part of those conversations. Dr. Newbill was part of those conversations. And one of the first things that came out that is not necessarily what we're going to talk about today, but it has I think it's a large piece of the puzzle, how we kind of got here, is, if we don't get paid for it, we can't do it. Right. And so that was kind of the layman's term. We said, hey, and I know we talked to Eric about, how we start looking at contracted services, so on and so forth. But with that being the backstory, what we did realize is that our reserves were not where they needed to be. We've got a substantial imbalance on what we have to operate this organization should something happen where, the receivables not coming in the way they should. And we've got a pretty substantial imbalance. So we started to put a strategic plan together, and I want to be careful with the verbiage, because I don't believe this is actually policy. And the reason we're talking about it here is because we had a pull-up conversation last week where I may have been a little confusing to our staff, but I wanted to make sure if we spoke about this plan, the strategic plan that we're presenting, that it didn't cross over into the line of policy, and did it need to be voted on, so on and so forth. And what we discussed, what we think is best, is to bring it to the executive committee, kind of get the executive committee to look at it, and spoke to Mr. Gregory, a couple of emails. And Martha, thank you. That email was long to read on my phone, but I didn't know an email that long could come out of a 5-minute conversation. But thank you for doing that. Mr. Gregory sent back a much more appropriate email and said, "Yeah, that sounds good." And I was very appreciative for the 4 lines in his email.
Brevity.
Say again?
The brevity.
Yeah, the brevity was great, but Martha put a lot of context in there. So here's where we are. With what happened in 2025, that could happen at any time. We just don't know. Organizations come in and grants get pulled. We're dealing with that back at home. People have dealt with that back at home. Grant funded positions, grant funded work. And the idea was, well, how long does PlanRVA need to be able to operate if our cash flow gets diminished greatly? One of the things we kind of talked about is we're not a company. So if we were to have to operate more than 6 months, there would probably be issues throughout the region that folks would be feeling at home. And so having that amount of cash on hand to operate for a really extended period of time wouldn't make sense. One, it would cause us cash flow problems. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to have a whole bunch of money sitting there. Could cause us some issues with accounting, particularly if they're federal funds. You can't put them in there and start drawing interest off of it. So we kind of came up with 6 months. And the question then comes is, well, what do you want to pay for the 6 months, right? What is it that you would want to pay for? Obviously keep the lights on, so on and so forth. But these are kind of stopgap measures. But we needed to be rather aggressive in moving towards that goal. And right now you'll see on the sheet here that our reserves are 12 and 88, 12 being cash, 88% being receivables. Well, we don't want to have 6 months worth of cash on hand. That doesn't, again, make sense. Doesn't make financial sense. You can't make a business case to have 6 months worth of cash on hand. But we think right now the right mix in our estimation, with input from the team and all of those folks. When I say the team, that's Lauren, Martha, and of course the folks on the finance committee, is that we'll start at a 50-50 mix. There seems to be a good business case for that. And that may shake out to be a 52-48 at some point, or a 48-52. We're just not sure, but this is probably, I think, the best idea that we've come up with to say we should present this. It is a little aggressive, but we do need to have these funds in there, but it is achievable and it is workable. So I'm going to let Lauren, I'm going to ask Lauren to speak to this a little bit more in depth. But I guess my question is, this isn't a financial, Mr. Gregory, would you consider this a financial policy?
Well, yes, once the full commission approves it, it would be basically a policy of the commission. Yes.
Okay, so here's the issue that we have then, and work me through this. In the finance committee, we spoke about it, but we didn't have a quorum in the finance committee. All right. So I'm talking about it in the executive committee. There's no requirement that it comes through blessed by a committee or the executive committee. Can we now put this in place? Because my feeling was that it was a policy as well, and therefore it needed to be codified by the entire commission. So can we, talk about it here and obviously take no action, and then go through and repeat at the commission and then get it implemented that way? And
Yes, sir.
this is just,
Absolutely.
okay. And then we don't, because there's no requirement for endorsements or anything like that.
No.
So that's would be my desire. So thank you. Lauren's going to give you a lot more, and I'll be trying to be more succinct at the full commission meeting, but that's why this got pushed up really quickly. And it is achievable. And you'll see some of the dates that we talked about in there, and then you'll see kind of a mix. You'll hear us talk about a mix between calendar years and fiscal years, and that was because of my input when we met, and I know that can be a little confusing, but it didn't make sense for everything for us to have this strategic plan and shoehorn it into just the fiscal years, because it's going to be a long-term plan. So I wanted to have some milestones and some benchmarks in calendar years too. So I felt like it was a little bit more information for the commission to have in order to make a decision. So thank you for that.
Before Ms. Shepherd speaks, Ms. Davis, that 126 December 2025 cash reserve balance, historically, where does that fall? Give me within the last 3 or 4 years, what's that been?
Our cash balance?
Reserves, yeah, just in that.
Just in cash?
Yeah, that number.
Well, I guess if we were to go for 3 FYs and
Is it above, beneath, or normal?
no, we're below.
Okay.
Oh, we're below. Yeah, that's why we moved rather aggressively.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we've been below where we needed to be, where we think is healthy. And there are reasons for it, but where we think is healthy, but now it's time to address it. But yeah, that's pretty substantial. I mean, and a lot of this came from a November phone call and meeting, and said, we've got to start working on this. So even in December at 126, that was where we said, okay,
Not a lot of money.
not at all. So
The rest of it's in receivables, though? It's not in actual, something that we haven't invested in, it's in receivables?
correct. And so Lauren can,
And you don't know if you're gonna receive it or not.
and so that's a valid point, and we're going to talk about that. But to have 6 months of cash, one could impact the operating of this. I mean, this business it comes in and then goes out. Sometimes we do stuff, then it comes in, CVTA, we have all of these types of things. But we're absent a profit motive in this business. So maybe in my business, I might not have 50% as receivables as something I would consider reserves. Here, it kind of makes sense. And again, if all of a sudden we're having a huge problem with receivables, other folks are going to see receivables in their areas as well. But to have 100% cash sitting there, that could impact our ability to actually function and get our mission accomplished with that much, dough in the bank, if you will. But it is a good question, and I think it is one that folks, because when you get back to the counties, people see their cash reserves much larger, and there's a reason for it. This organization would be, we'd be hampered in our mission to have that much cash there. And I think somebody from a fiscal standpoint would say that doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah.
But regardless, 12% is not enough. That's your biggest point.
That's why we're
right?
here.
That's your 12% is not enough.
Yes, sir.
I think we all can agree with that.
Yeah, I'll just maybe add a couple of like kind of really gross characterization. So when the fiscal year begins, we have the most substantial infusion of cash because that's when our member dues and the first installment of the General Assembly appropriation comes to us. So those are almost advances, if you will. And so during the first quarter, we have a pretty good situation because we have a lot of operating runway. When you get into the second quarter, that's our highest amount of scheduled leave because of the way that the holidays fall for the year. And also, as you know, probably you can imagine in your own schedules, that sort of December timeframe, Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, those types of things, you start to see staff members taking some scheduled leave. So the second quarter of the year is our, from a financial profit and loss perspective, the least lucrative for the organization. You get into the third quarter, which is our most productive part of the year, because of the way that the holidays fall. There are the fewest number of holidays in that particular quarter. And it's also our quarter that there's the least amount of leave time. So we have this sort of like, steady kind of decline down, and then we hit to the end of the fiscal year, and all by this time of year, when we're in the February, March, April timeframe, all we're really operating on is that flow of receivables. So we're advancing almost all of our expenses just by virtue of the terms of our agreements. And then we're relying on that. So the beginning of the year, the cash proportion is much higher. And then this is the time of year where it really hits the lowest. And the goal with this new plan, the strategy that we've put into place, is to basically create a floor for that cash percentage to never go below a certain point, which I think insulates us from the changes that have happened just by nature of how our operating model works. That in my career really were never, frankly, that much of a concern. But things are different now, and so this is an opportunity for us to revise how we operate and how we manage these things, because the mix of our funding has changed dramatically, but also the timeliness of payment of various grants that we receive has, we can see from our data, has really significantly seen a lag.
And I'll add this, and I think it will help policymakers when they're making decisions about expenses in this organization to be mindful of this, and again, we're in this building here. There were a number of different options that were presented to the commission at a number of years ago on where we might go for rental space. And this was chosen. This had a different price tag than maybe some other places. And as we, fill in positions, if we have attrition, organic attrition, it'll help, I think, staff and the commission be very mindful of strategies when it comes to expenses as well. You turn around and say, well, I've kind of got some of this money right here. Maybe we should go do this. And then you go and you look in the checking account and you say, maybe I need to rethink, maybe I need to be mindful of that as we make these plans. And then lastly, and I won't get into all of the stuff with rent and all of the other expenses, but when you get hit with something, and you've got this money here, that can help when that money's not there. So as an example, at one point, Lauren told me, she said, well, we got enough money to make payroll through December 15th. And my response was, that doesn't comfort me. When this was in November, right? So I think it can help sometimes when we see these things come in. Like I told Chet the other day when we were at VACO, I said, hey, give me my money. Of course, he had already, advanced us there through CVTA, but, say that somewhat in jest. But when you have a full financial picture, I believe it helps you when you're making your decisions in some other areas that were maybe not respectfully as short-sighted in some of these areas. So, I don't necessarily need to go into all those phone calls in the commission meeting, but there was a lot of talk behind the scenes, and I'm grateful that we were able to move as quickly as we were able to move on this. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I
You have a question?
do, it's completely off that subject, sorry, but because Bill's here, is he able to step into Steve's role for this meeting so that we can actually have a quorum?
Are you willing
I
to
would
be
love to,
alternate?
yeah, that was his desire this morning, just to see if there's a way that I could, I guess, position myself to take his role on the executive.
Then we can take a position.
That would.
Welcome to
That
the
would be my
executive committee for
preference.
this morning, Mr. Donati. We're glad you're here.
It's uncomfortable.
So what time is it? So we've achieved 4 hours.
Yeah, let's certify. Just.
I'm sorry
No,
but
I was-
that just allows us to
That's what I was gonna
actually-
move to after your question, so
Okay.
thank you. So we've achieved a quorum and we will confirm Dr. Newbill's participation from a
Yeah.
remote location. Can I have do I have to? Somebody have to move.
Yeah, we are. That's why I said it.
Second.
So.
All in favor of Dr. Newbill participating remotely?
Aye.
Great, sounds great. Dr. Newbill, welcome to the official meeting. We're glad you're
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for accommodating me.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so I just, Lauren and I were talking, I want to be clear. You'll see it written down here. Maybe I wasn't as clear about when I was talking about the calendar year. So our ultimate goal is 6 months. Our first target is by the end of 2027 is to have that 3 months in there. And then I think the other 3 months will come because it's going to be executing that plan along this way. So that's the calendar year part. Lauren got a little nervous thinking that I may have given the impression that we're going to have that full 6 months by the 2027 date. That's 3 months, but then the rest should be kind of plug and play, hopefully at that point. And then this mix number here, the 50-50, by that time that may change some. And that could be fluid as well. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare Miss Shepherd, but I figured she would cover that in her presentation. Ultimate goal, 6 months, but it's going to take us a while to pull this wagon. But I think the first half of the journey is likely the hardest. And then we'll have more data that we can turn into information and say, this is actually what it looked like. And, you know, again, that's where that number will change. So sorry, Lauren, I did not mean to cause stress, anxiety, and fear due to my lack of communication, my poor communication.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Davis. And Mr. Donati, just to catch you up on the little bit that we had talked about before.
Would you like me to start over?
No, thank you. We are talking about a financial strategy to implement to get us to a better cash reserve / receivable balance to sustain in a long-term capacity the organization. So that's in words to explain.
Right now, we're at 8812 and then we only have 126,000 in cash reserves, and that's not enough. So that sums it up pretty quick.
Yes,
right?
that is the summary. And I would like to go back to approve the November 13th, 2025 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Alan said
Aye.
yes to.
Anyone opposed? Great, okay, thank you, those are approved. All right, and Ms. Shepherd, did you want to add any flavor on to what John said?
I'll just, if I can respond to a couple comments, Reverend Cooper, you had asked about the cash balances in the last few years. And I just wanted to point out in our current policy, in our current fund balance policy, it's silent on the balance of cash. And so we have not necessarily been below that we're not below that fund balance policy right now. It's just silent on the mix of cash and receivables. So just wanted to make that clear.
Probably like 1.2.
Yeah, I think we're at 1.2 at the end of the fiscal year 25. Yeah, which, and the policy is $1 million.
But you can't pay the bills with something that hasn't come in yet.
Receivable, sure.
Correct, and I also wanna calm any fears. That 126 is the amount that's invested in our local government investment pool. So we have other cash in an operating truist account. So I just.
That's not all we have, what you're saying.
Correct,
Yes,
yeah,
Yes,
that's just the invested cash
Yes, ma'am.
portion. Yeah, and you had asked about receivables, and so one of our largest partner, VDOT, has been really working, since I've been here, to turn their receivables more quickly. We've had some really good conversations with our partners over at VDOT to help
But
them.
that in and of itself could change the mix.
Correct, and what we found is during the shutdown, the federal shutdown in November, VDOT was not, we were in close communication with them, and their reimbursements to us were not impacted at that time. And so we're also trying to get a better understanding of what would the levers be for some of our larger partners that would potentially impact their funding.
Just so you know, I confirmed your yes on the minute.
Appreciate that.
That you told me about before you left.
Yeah. I'll see that.
Thank you for the teamwork.
Yeah, then I'll make one more.
Very squirmy.
On that second page is when the second page of that slide said, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up, that's the timing that we had talked about as far as the full commission to look at this. So Mr. Davis, if you've got any other feedback or comments on this, but that was the timing that we had initially talked about. So the executive committee would talk through adoption of this plan today, and then we would bring the full commission in.
That is what we talked
in
about.
April.
My question is, could you do it today?
So that's what we were just discussing, because in this time, I need to move the April 9th meeting date to a different day. So I would like to take care of this today if possible.
I would too.
Is that possible?
As long as,
amend the
as
agenda.
long as the commission is fully briefed and has an understanding, and then they can take action.
We just amend the agenda when we start the next.
Is that, and that's what the question we had last Thursday is how we would amend, and we published in this idea, but we could amend here.
You can do that.
Check or you.
Yeah, I think as long as the commissioners accept the amendment to the agenda, there would be no issue. That action would effectively be waiving the 10-day notice.
We can fold that in. We can ask them to waive the 10-day notice.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are you gonna work on the verbiage for that?
Sure.
Mr. Whitman, in that way. Boy,
Yeah, I
that's
was scribbling
great. That's what
something.
you
think
look at this chair. This
if I
chair
can-
getting stuff done. We get it done today.
In A5, when Chair Stewart asks for consideration of amendments to the agenda, that would be the right time to introduce an item wherever you want. And the motion would be to waive the 10-day notice requirement and add that item as an action item this morning. So I don't know who would want to do that
Mr. Dave.
motion.
Okay, if you write that down, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
And what are you calling this effort?
Well, at
Reserve
this point,
policy change.
yeah, I would say the strategic financial reserve, and I think we could go with policy at this point. I like
Policy
policy.
Wait, it says fund balance / reserve policy
Update.
update.
Sounds great.
Or
As long
amend.
as I get there, yeah, thank you.
And if we can clarify that the policy, though it's being approved today, that we know we're on a path to achieve it by
Yeah.
2027.
Covered that, covered that. Well,
Make sure it's clear.
achieve the
She
first
wants to make
half,
sure
but-
that the
Right.
that the policy
Yep.
takes that
There's a
into
run.
consideration.
Yes.
I'll explain the roadway.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm just happy that.
Yes, I will explain it.
Under approval of agenda
Potentially,
for amendment.
I would add it to a section,
Between us all.
C1.
Between them.
Like where? We're actually gonna talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
The flow show.
Yeah, we got a great yard.
Yeah.
All right, so that sounds like we have a plan. Next on our list, technology assessment. Oh, also, I'm joining the finance committee as an official member representing Newton County. So announcement. Technology assessment implementation, Ms. Schickel. Would you like to provide an update of the efforts to improve technology systems?
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. We received a grant award last year from Virginia Housing, which has not been affected in any way by the change in timing of payments from federal dollars. This is kind of considered private money, so that's a good thing, and sort of the spectrum of the diversification that we've been able to achieve. A big part of that grant contributed to the cost to integrate the new financial management system. I just want to kind of call out what that means for overall from a technology perspective. Lauren did a great job of communicating a couple things on that, but to put a finer point on it, this really integrates a patchwork of, I don't know, 5 different systems that were operating at different levels with Excel spreadsheets connecting in between and a lot of manual effort that were causing inefficiencies in our finance and admin team, but also across the entire agency. So this is represents a big move forward from a technological perspective for us. And it's opening the door for us to talk about some other really important things around cybersecurity. And so we've got grant funding also to be able to help us beef up our cybersecurity. We're in the process right now of implementing a project with our managed services provider to increase device monitoring and other types of security protocols and security policies inside our system to ensure that our devices are safe, that our data is safe, and that we're protecting ourselves against phishing expeditions and other types of malicious behavior that happens in the digital world. So that's been a really great help. We've gotten some pro bono support from Data Directions. Many of you might know that Frank Petrosky, who sits on the large commission, is a principal there at that company, and Mark Creary is a past commissioner, actually, from many years ago, and they very willingly offered some advisory services. So they're meeting with a small team of us monthly to talk through our full kind of technology strategy and help us think through questions that we might not have the knowledge to ask our managed services provider. So we're really grateful for that. And we've been able to connect through a pretty small fee for membership with PlanRVA, also to be able to get some pro bono guidance and support to be able to help us understand the implications of AI in opportunities, but also the sort of protections that we need to put in place. So that's kind of another big thing that's happening behind the scenes, but I think really important. And I would imagine are topics that are happening in your local governments at home about how to address particularly the security components of technology. Some of this ties directly to some of the new mandates. You all see kind of the headlines around, I'm pivoting into the federal updates if that's okay, but you all see the headlines around particularly things around like sort of voter security, but we're seeing new language written into our terms and conditions of various grant awards where we have to demonstrate that we have these data security protocols in place. So this is, I think just important and keeping with the times, but it's from a compliance perspective, really important for us as well. Fully switching gears, I just want to make an announcement that our quadrennial recertification review is underway with Federal Highway and FTA. We've got an on-site visit scheduled for February 25th. This is a joint review with the Tri-Cities MPO, and so they'll be with the Tri-Cities Crater Planning District on Tuesday, the 24th, and here in our office on the 25th. We'll have a public meeting that afternoon. We've already initiated some outreach to stakeholders to ensure that they know that they're invited to participate in that public meeting at 6:30 on the 25th. No action really is needed from the PlanRVA Commission, but this is a pretty critical, regular evaluation of our program performance under that. And we've been assured by Mr. Rucker from Federal Highway at last week's policy board meeting that they're heading into this process with an expectation of recertification. But I'll note that given the challenges at the federal level with staffing at both FHWA and FTA, we're on a very compressed timeline. They gave us about 3 weeks notice for this review, and they will have to turn around preliminary results from that review within 2 weeks in order to meet our recertification deadline. So this is a big effort. It's a big part of our planned work program this fiscal year, but it is something that's happening imminently. And I feel very good about the positioning that we have and the work that our team has done to maintain compliance. You all also know that we were, the Congress was able to successfully avert another shutdown heading in. Well, we had a 3-day shutdown, I guess 4 days technically at the end of January. Really with the only kind of outstanding issue, at least through September 30th of 2026, is the Department of Homeland Security that still needs to be resolved. How that impacts us and also for local jurisdictions, I know that there have been some contact. Jessica was briefing us in Chesterfield about what's happening. FEMA money is part of the Department of Homeland Security. And so there are some pretty significant implications with regard to this from a grant funding perspective. Very much to echo Mr. Davis's comments, we know loud and clear we don't do what we're not going to get paid for. And so we're watching that closely and are ready to either turn off or turn on those programs that are FEMA funded, depending on what happens. And we're in contact with the State Department of Emergency Management to understand whether grant extensions are going to be awarded under these sort of extraordinary circumstances. The State Homeland Security Grant Program that's funded by FEMA passed through VDEM to us. We've probably got about $400,000 wrapped up in awards for that. Most of that is intended to purchase supplies and equipment and undertake training activities for your emergency managers across the region. The funds were made available right around September 30th, October 1, right when the shutdown happened. And so we paused that program then. We reopened it at the beginning of January, and now we're in sort of a tentative pause again because of the status with DHS. So just something for you all to be aware of and how we're handling and navigating that. Last thing I'll say is there are some new regulations that all localities are subject to as well, that the state took action on last year, and we're working to achieve compliance around Americans with Disability Act. There's a lot of new legislation that was introduced last session that went into effect July 1, and I think the deadline for localities to comply is April 1st of this year, to be able to bring our digital content up. We're not going to meet that deadline, but we will have a plan in place to meet that deadline as soon as possible with a revamp of our new website. So just wanted to flag those couple things. And that's it.
Do you want to move to the efforts to increase the appropriation?
Yeah, so we've got two budget amendments that were introduced on both the House and Senate side. I can provide these. It's probably easier for me to provide it in a follow-up email if you'd like it, but we've got activation from thanks to our chair and our members of our finance committee who are reaching out to key members of those Senate and House subcommittees that focus on the budget. As you all know, we're kind of in the, well, I don't want to, you're the expert on this. We're in the home stretch before we move into conference in the next week. So this is really kind of the final push to be able to let our legislators know that an increase in funding to planning district commissions is pretty critical. This honestly could go a long way in helping us achieve some real progress very quickly with our fund balance policy that you'll be discussing. And so if we were to achieve an increase from the General Assembly, this would really help us to be able to park some of that money immediately into that cash reserve. So VML, VACO have signed on to this. Our chamber RVA has signed on to it. They are doing some advocacy this week on our behalf. Richmond Association of Realtors has done some work for us. And so that's where we are with kind of partnerships and pushing that ball forward.
Great, thank you. And I know at least on the House side, the delegates were asked to present their top 3 budget amendment requests because some of them carry 3, some of them carry 20, and all 3 of the members that are listed here presented this one as part of their top 3. So that's, oh,
Sorry.
well, okay. Delegate Glass, McQuinn, and Kilgore presented these as one of their top 3 budget amendments. So that's good news, and there's buy-in from each one of those representatives. And I'm sure Senator Favola did as well. I just have not talked to her personally about it. But we'll keep you updated. I'm down there every day. So, and unfortunately people are learning where my office is. So I am always willing to push our initiatives forward when I have the opportunity. So thank you, Ms. Schickel, for getting that going. I think I want to skip down to convene the region future meeting topics first, and we'll come back to number 2 in a second if we have time. Our next meeting is supposed to be scheduled for April 9th. I have a conflict on that day, and I would like to either change it to April 16th or May 14th. I wanted agreement among this committee before. You'll just tell me what date works better for you.
That's fine.
And do we have to take formal action to move the date, or can we just?
You would need a motion.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We would just be voting in here to make a motion to support the motion for the full board, right?
Well,
Or
you
does the
could-
executive to make?
Executive committee, and then you could essentially make a recommendation.
Yeah, we're just making a vote to recommend to the full board that we move to them, right?
You can
But the
move
full
your
board
own
has to-
executive committee.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
So questions, do we need a motion to make this recommendation? And if so, it's like,
So I make a motion to move the executive meeting to April 14th, is it
16th.
to April 16th? And to make a recommendation to the full board to move the full board meeting to April 16th.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. And then what I would like to do, because I would like to end this meeting on time, so we can begin the next one on time, is I would like to maybe talk with, you all individually, about number 2, which is budget and work program development, and your recommendations on what we think we might want to do in the future. So if you all can spare some time for me on a phone call at some point soon, I would welcome the opportunity to talk with you. And I can share, or Martha can share what she has listed here on my working document as some recommendations. And then does anyone have a burning desire for what our next full board meeting should cover at the topic? Dr. Newbill, do you have anything in your lane?
No, you pretty much covered the things when you dealt with the reserve for contingency, those kinds of things. So no, that was, I think, probably the lead item for me.
Okay, great. Well, we will, Martha and I will discuss, and like I said, I will talk with each of you individually, and we will reveal the next meeting topic like a prize on Jeopardy or The Price is Right. Let's see, does anyone have anything before we end the meeting? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And will you get with me on the dues for that?
Oh, this is
I think it is.
I will. Do we need to move?
You can.
Okay, all right, well, I will.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Dr. Newbill?
Yes, I do one item, and this may be on, at some point to recognize the incredible work done by staff in implementing the new software.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dr. Newbill, for that recognition. I will make sure everyone that is here acknowledges and we recognize them for their really hard work. All right, well, I will say at 9:26, we are